Hi guys, welcome to Beauty and the Beat. I'm your host Amanda Annan, and with me in the other side of the studio as normal is Chandra Lynn. Hi Chandra.
Hello.
Hello world. Well, guys, I've been talking to you a lot about health and wellness, and last week we had Desiree Lots, and so we decided to have another guest that's an expert on health and wellness, because as we all know, some of us are hitting that perimenopause stage, while some of us are still young and fit and beautiful, and others just want to know how to keep fit, eat well. And our guest today is called Amber Shaw. So, Amber is a body transformation expert and founder of the Wellness Revolution, motivational speaker, and internationally recognized authority in health and wellness industry. Amber is the founder of the Wellness Revolution, a leading global movement for thousands of women to empower them to rediscover their confidence and create a body that looks as good as it feels. Her mission is to help millions of women heal their relationships with food and themselves, while empowering them to transform their lives, love their bodies, and create lasting results. Amber, welcome to the Beauty and the Beat podcast.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. So I really appreciate it and I'm looking forward to it.
Welcome. And you can see why we have Amanda doing the intros. Her voice is so beautiful.
So beautiful.
When she did my intro, I just wanted to keep it on. I wish I could have framed it somehow.
It's so funny. That was the first thought I had. I was like, I just want her to do all my introductions. So
exactly.
Yeah, perfect.
So beautiful,
Thank
Amanda.
You. Thank you. So Amber, let's talk about you. I mean, I've been reading a lot about what you do, about the whole health and wellness thing. One question we always ask our guest is what was the journey like? Is health and wellness something you always wanted to do, or did you discover this?
It's really funny that you asked that because I just was really thinking about this a lot yesterday, just of kind of where, if I could try and pinpoint where this whole thing really started for me. And I have to say that I realized so much of my story and where I'm at now and why I feel so passionate about coaching women, and particularly to, get off the crazy train of dieting, as I say, and really heal their body with food and their relationship with their body. It really stemmed from when I was a kid. That really started the whole journey for me as to realizing that I was uncomfortable in my own skin by the age of 9 or 10. And so that for me, these body image issues and feeling like I was never really an overweight kid, but I was very athletic. I looked bigger than a lot of the other girls and boys. And I developed very early on, by 13, I looked like I was 18. And so during that time, I think even for my parents, my mom and my dad, there wasn't a lot of awareness going on about how to talk about diet and body and all of that with your daughter. And I think we've come a long way in body image, and just the word diet and my mom constantly getting on the scale and all these things. These are things that really had such an impression on me at such an early age. And looking back, because I've done a lot of therapy and really done a lot of inner work, I really watched it kind of progress into my life, into my 15s, into my teens, starting my first diet, moving on into my 20s, where I was bulimic. And I was very fortunate to have professional help to be able to kind of back my way out of the physical act. But I never really healed myself for the what was going on inside of me, and healed my relationship with myself. And so it just really started this whole lifetime of just constant dieting, constantly wanting to be in a different body. And moving into my 30s, when I had my kids, I gained about 65 pounds. It seemed to me, for whatever reason, the magic number with both kids. And I was more so than ever, so uncomfortable in my body. And I would lose the weight. And it's really funny I hear from a lot of people, that I went to school with and I grew up with, and like, we never knew that you were, that this was going on with you, that you felt so uncomfortable, because from the outside looking in, I was a very confident person. I was not overweight, but I was really sad inside about the way I felt about myself. And so it just really progressed into my 30s, and just still really struggling. And I would say, kind of like the big aha moment for me of how I knew that I not only needed to really fix myself, but then how could I take the work that I've done and then share it with others, and turn that into something positive, was in 2018, my marriage really imploded, and I was also getting ready to turn 40. And so I started asking myself a lot of hard questions about what was making me happy in my life, what was not making me happy, what did I want to do with my career? Because at that time, I was in about 16 years of a very successful sales job. And so at a very pivotal moment in my life, I did a yoga retreat for my 40th birthday to just try and create some space for myself and get some answers, get some clarity, because I was in a really traumatic time in my life in the middle of my marriage falling apart. And through a lot of just inner work and asking some questions, I really decided that my purpose and passion was to be a coach. And so, that was in 2020. I'm sorry, that was in 2019. And I immediately came back and took action, and got into the Institute for Integrative Nutrition to do a year-long program, and re-upped my personal training certification, because I had that in my 20s. It wasn't to be a personal trainer. It was really just to I was fascinated. It really kind of went along, honestly, with like my obsession with like fitness and all that stuff. And that's really kind of it. I know it's kind of a long-winded answer, but it was really such a crazy twist and turn of how it all happened. And then I will say that just the crazy thing that really kind of solidified for me of exactly what my role is and when coaching women, as far as, with weight loss and helping women heal their relationship with food, was I got on TikTok right when the pandemic hit. And I saw a marketer talk about growing your business on TikTok. And I thought, okay, well, we're just going to give this a go. And I did, and it changed my life forever. I grew a following by just being able to really relate with other women over 40 that are sharing a lot of the same struggles. So anyways, that's kind of how it came to be.
I think that your story, and thank you for sharing it, is one that so many of us can relate to, and it's interesting because, we're intelligent, attractive women, and it's, imagine what other women that, aren't as fortunate have to go through. It's like, it's just this really difficult inner struggle. And you're right, a lot of times we can present I don't necessarily, it's a facade where it's like a side of ourselves that's confident, but inside we can feel like we're struggling. And I also went through a situation where when I got pregnant and I think I may have gained like 40 or something pounds, but there was a little panic inside of myself, like thinking I'm never going to be able to lose it, or, I'm on this slippery slope, it's never going to be the same. And I went on this big fitness, challenge, bodybuilding.com, kind of wanting to transform, all of that type of stuff, and threw myself into, what is going to be the most transformative experience that I could put myself through to not, go down that road. I think a lot of us worry about, okay, well, now that we've had kids, our bodies are never going to be the same, and we're just going to have to accept that. And I don't think we totally have to.
No, I absolutely not. And I think that, it definitely, what came for me too, up for me, is when you said, you kind of panicked inside a little bit when you had that. And, for me, I think I really, I realized that so much of my self-worth was so attached to the way that I looked on the outside that, yeah, that really sent me into like a total tailspin. It was like, who am I if I don't look this way? Who am I? I'm less than if I don't look this particular way. And so I think a lot of women, especially after kids, our bodies change and where our priorities, we don't have time as much anymore to spend on ourselves because we are pulled in a lot of different directions. And so I think what happens is a lot of women, and this is, I talk to women every day that this happens, is that you have kids and your self-care, your health, all of that sort of gets put on hold. And then you wake up one day and the kids are older and you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you realize how miserable you feel in your own skin. And I, it doesn't have to be that way. That, I love that you said that. Yeah.
And Amanda, being a model, I mean, this has got to be part of your focus as well.
Um, I think it is a big part of my focus, health and nutrition. I never took health or nutrition seriously for a long time because I just, I guess it's like most of us, you're just there. You've got a good body, you're there, you don't really think about it, you eat what you like. And then I must say, in my 30s, I started noticing all of a sudden I'm getting the, and part of it is body image, part of it is feeling comfortable with yourself, right? Because, you're like, oh, I'm getting the stomach. And then I've got friends who've had kids and they can't get their body back. And, our hormones change. And you start finding out that, oh my God, I'm eating the same things, but nothing's happening. I'm like not getting skinnier. I'm on a diet, but I still got the cellulite. And I think part of it is also all the societal expectations of us as women, because we think, oh, cellulite's no good. Oh, you've got to have a flat tummy. You can't have fat on your arms, but it's part of what we are. You know what I mean? And what Amber does, which I like, is the fact that you're teaching women how to be healthy. It's not about becoming skinny. It's not about, just like dieting for dieting's sake. It's a whole 360 thing. But one particular question I wanted to ask you is for listeners out there that are over the age of 40 or 50 and are coming into this stage where, all the hormones are just doing what they want. They're realizing the same things don't work anymore. The same foods don't work anymore. Your body's changing. I remember when I was younger, I'm going to tell you something that's really funny. I used to look at women, I'd look at all these women like maybe in their 50s or, older, and I'd be like, I said to one of my girlfriends, I'm like, how come their knees get so big? And I'll be like, because I used to think this was, because I was like, did you see a picture when she was young? She had thin legs. How did her hips get so wide and her knees get so fat? 'Cause I was, and
So I.
it's not, yeah, but it's also body changes, right? Our bodies, and I think there's a lot more body changes. It's a lot more than fat, and the muscles change as well. Our muscles change, the whole thing changes. So maybe Amber can tell us a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely so much of part of my platform and working with women because I do coach women specifically over 40 and the hormone piece of it and just the changes. And this is why I felt when I first went into coaching, I didn't really know that that was going to be my jam. I didn't know that women over 40 was going to be my demographic, but I realized there's such a need, I think, in the dieting culture, in this world for coaches that are over 40 that can relate to women over 40, because if I am so sick and tired of hearing, some of these younger coaches that just say, oh, well, if you just want to lose weight, you just got to cut your calories, just calories in, calories out. And the truth is that is a piece of the puzzle. Calories are a piece of the puzzle, but wow, it is not the only piece. And, I always find it really interesting. You try telling a woman that's 50 years old who's eating, 800 calories a day and can't lose weight, and you then tell her it's calories in, calories out. Like, I just think it's ridiculous. And so I do think that you're right. Over the age of 40, especially, 45, 50, especially as you get up into that menopausal range, I think that there's a lot of considerations that need to be taken into account. Number one, over the age of 40, your body loses about a half a pound of muscle per year. So not only is that going to contribute to your body composition, right, and your ratio of muscle to fat, that's a big piece of it. But also that affects your metabolism. So as we age, that metabolic rate drops. So you're right. This is why so many women wake up and they're like 45 or 50 and they're like, I don't understand everything that I used to do. I'm eating the same stuff. I'm doing the same stuff, but I'm gaining weight and I can't figure it out. And that's because of our hormonal changes, because of the recompositioning of our body and slowing down the metabolism and all of that. That is what happens. I mean, we have to change what we're doing. So, then the question becomes, okay, so what does that look like? What are the things I need to change, right? And what my kind of top things that when I coach women and they come to me and they're struggling with that, right? That kind of that same scenario is, number one, absolutely, my first question is, well, how much are you eating, right? Are you eating enough food? Because so many women, especially women that have been stuck kind of in the dieting vortex, as I like to call it, for so many years, what they don't realize, because they've been fed that message of calories in, calories out, which again, that there's definitely some science behind that, and that is true, calorie reduction, all of that. However, I think the message that is not said a lot is that you can cut your calories to a point of no return, meaning you keep cutting what you're intaking, and your body is so intuitive, it will adjust. Your metabolism adjusts. And when you get to the point where you are eating continually eating less than what your body needs, your metabolism is going to slow down. You're going to halt. You're not going to be losing any weight. So always, because of our body is changing, always asking women, are they eating enough food? I absolutely recommend strength training, even more so. I get asked all the time, women over 40, how should we be exercising? And even more so, because in order to combat the drop in the metabolism, you absolutely need to start doing some strength training. That is going to help fight that. And then, the other thing that I say is really important, I think, for women over 40 is that you can no longer afford to look at food as just calories in and calories out. The quality of food that you're putting into your body absolutely matters. It's always mattered, but when you're in your 20s, your 30s or whatever, there's a little bit more flexibility there. You're not having a lot of the same, the hormonal changes and all of that. And so it's even more so important now that you are focusing on foods that are going to fuel your body, reducing a lot of the processed and packaged foods, reducing a lot of the sugar in your diet. And that is kind of more of like a clean eating lifestyle, but that's how you use food as medicine to balance your hormones naturally as best as possible, to fight off disease, to fight off inflammation. So I definitely think that, yes, our body is changing over 40, and there's some things have to change. You can't keep doing what you've been doing all along, because you'll get to the point where you realize it's not working. So
Well, I think that the women over 40 age group, let's just say we're kind of the slim fast generation, right? So you're dealing with this programming of 1,200 calories in two shakes and a salad. That's kind of this programming that we have. And many of us have had experiences where that has worked for weight loss, right? But then there's that yo-yo dieting and all of that. And then we've come into this newer age of organic food and learning more about superfoods and processed foods and, saturated, unsaturated. I mean, we have so much knowledge now that I think what happens is you went from this super simplified 2 shakes and a salad to like all of, if you're not getting your macros blended with your superfoods, with your right calories, it's not too little, not too much. Like there's so many apps and things. And I think that it's all to say that that's why having a really great coach can be really helpful, because if we're not specialists and we take this input, it's very hard to process it to make it be a program that specifically works for you, because it can work for other people. And the other thing I wanted to say, because okay, you guys, in less than 2 weeks, I'm going to be 51.
Whoop,
I
whoop.
feel like I have gone through exactly what Amber is describing with having a kid and dealing with that, getting into strength training and deal with that, figuring out what good for you foods are and, and not good for you foods are. And I feel like one of the things, so I'm like on a high horse about this because it really is so crucial. And the sooner that you can get into it, the better. But that it's confusing. I have to say, Amber and Amanda both, I'm still confused at 51, what works for me. I know that I have some things that totally do, but there is that temptation to resort back to 2 shakes and salad, okay? Because some of it gets overwhelming. And so I do think having coaching to work on your specific situation and body style. Are you an ectomorph, mesomorph, or endomorph body style? A lot of people don't understand that. Maybe learning your Ayurvedic doshas. There's all these layers of knowledge that can be used to help you, but boy, is it confusing. So I imagine you run into that a lot, Amber.
I mean, absolutely. I think that I do agree that we are all individuals, and what works for one definitely does not work for the other. I think how I feel about that, though, is that find something though that you are going to stick to and make it a lifestyle. Whether that is Ayurvedic medicine, whether that is you decide that keto is what is your jam, right? I think the problem is that we have so overcomplicated it because we are impatient. A lot of times we don't take care of our body on a consistent basis. We're not able to be very consistent. Then we wake up one day and we're like, oh my gosh, I got to shed 10, 20 pounds or whatever it is. And we jump from one thing to the next. And when your expectations are that you are going to drop those 10 or 20 pounds in a month or whatever, you are being way too restrictive to ever possibly sustain that long term. And what I've found is, you're right, there's a lot of things that can work, but it really comes down, honestly, to just being consistent. When you are a little less perfect, you can be a hell of a lot more consistent, right? And so, that,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. And what happens is that we start something and we're impatient. We go all in and we're like, okay, I'm going to go on a diet or whatever it is. I'm going to eat really well. And we're like 3 weeks in and we're like, man, this sucks. I haven't allowed myself anything and I'm not seeing very many results. And then you get off and you want to go to the next thing. And in reality, if you would just stick with it and allow yourself, that pizza on the Friday night, and then, you're eating pretty well 80% of the time, and just stick with it and be patient, then that is the answer. That is the key. And so there are a lot of different things that work, but a lot of people lack the patience to be consistent, for sure.
So another thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to ask you about supplements, because I think that also plays a huge role. Because, Chandra was talking now about all the stuff about like the nutrition, all these diets, everything. But I know supplements play a huge role because sometimes we're deficient in certain supplements. And for example, I take something called, I don't know if you know it, called NMN. It's NMN. It's a supplement that was discovered by Dr. David Sinclair, and they did a test in mice, and it actually kind of reverses aging. I mean, you can find so much information of it online. You just Google Dr. David Sinclair, and there's lots about it. And when he first came out with the research, because he's at Harvard, and when he came out with the research, all these supplement companies came up and they all started selling NMN. So I take NMN now. You have to take it first thing in the morning, and you take it with resveratrol, which you have to take with some fat. And there have been studies done on NMN, and even he gives NMN to his 80-year-old father who hikes up mountains and stuff. And what it does is it actually helps us retain more muscle mass and actually reverses aging. So you don't get, or, you don't, I mean, I've been taking it for like a year now, and I don't know if it's working or not personally, but then saying that, I mean, I do look a lot more younger. Most people think I'm in my 20s, even though I'm almost 40 now. So
Yeah.
maybe the NMN is working.
working. Well, and you're such a beauty.
Yeah.
That's a great tip. I'm gonna have to look that one up. I'm not familiar with that. I mean, and I've definitely had a lot of supplement recommendations
Mhm.
over the years, and the challenge that I have is that, I'll look at all the supplements I should be taking, and it's a lot. I can't choke all that down. I've learned certain things to put in my smoothies that are, taste good with a smoothie, like a collagen powder or, that kind of thing. But it's or flax, and we could get into all kinds of smoothie additives here. But I think that it goes back to not really being sure and almost doing it just to cover your bases, or just to think that, oh yeah, that somebody said I should do that because I'm often deficient. I mean, I definitely know people are deficient in D and B12 if they don't eat meat. But outside of that, I don't know how deficient we really are in everything. And if that's just such an individual type of thing that it's hard to recommend certain things. But yeah, I mean, that's again another reason to work with a coach and figure out what you actually need.
Yeah, absolutely. The supplement world, it's just even I'll walk into a Whole Foods and before I know it, I'm like down the rabbit hole. Like, I've got $700 worth of stuff in my cart. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Yeah, it's and for me, when it comes to supplements, I do think that we can absolutely go a little bit overboard on them. And I think that you're right. Sometimes that's such a good way of putting it, is that I think we take a lot of stuff to almost like cover our bases because we're just not sure. And we're like, I'm going to throw it. And if it sticks, great. Like no harm, no foul. Right. Um,
We'll pee the rest
yeah,
out.
exactly. Like, totally fine. I do think, and I realize that not everybody has the financial means to get to like an integrative, a functional medicine doctor or integrative medicine doctor to actually have a lot of this blood work done to see literally what vitamins you are deficient in. I mean, ideally, that's the best way to go about it. So you're not just wasting money and, sometimes with supplements, you can overdo it. You might be just fine in vitamin B and you are like way, taking too much. So I mean, the amount you'd have to take to like really overdo it, I mean, that's a lot, but I'm just saying it's more so that you'd be taking something that you don't necessarily need. So I definitely think if you can get to the doctor, even, even if you don't have the means, or if you live in an area where you don't have access to I live in Atlanta, so I've got access to a lot of, integrative medical doctors, holistic type doctors, that are going to do actual blood work on you, right? Like do actual blood work. But if you don't even have the means for that, at least stay on top of getting to like your gynecologist once a year. They can do some basic tests. Like gynecologists can absolutely test for D, which is a big one. And you're right, most humans are deficient in D. So there's other vitamins and minerals that they can test for. It gets a little bit more expansive when you go to more of the integrative route. But so I would say that, start there. And then I think that for me, when it comes to supplements, I like to just really stick to the ones that are that either like we can't usually produce on our own. Like a fish oil is one that well, let me back up. I will also say, first of all, I highly recommend getting things from your food first, right? Like you can't, eat processed and packaged foods, eat a bunch of garbage, and then expect to throw a bunch of pills down your throat and it's going to be effective, right? So the best way to start to make sure you're getting all the vitamins and minerals is eat a more balanced diet, right? So there's that. But when it comes to the supplements, I would say I've got a list of just a handful of ones that I think are pretty important. And I think especially for women over 40. And I definitely think vitamin D is one. That because a lot, again, we have it, getting vitamin D from the sun. A lot of us are not out as much, and it's not as big of a variety from food. So I think vitamin D is one. In my opinion, taking a probiotic, which is a supplement you can take to balance the good and the bad bacteria in your gut. I think that one's important because, especially for women over 40, your gut health actually regulates more of our hormones than a lot of us realize, right? They're just just scratching the surface on how incredibly impactful our gut health is on our overall health. And so I think that making sure you have good gut health is important. So I think a probiotic, I think vitamin D. I do think that magnesium is another one that can be really important as well. Or it's one of, I think it's the fourth biggest mineral in the body. It regulates so many different reactions in the body, and it can help with sleep. It can help with, we all know a lot of women over 40 struggle with sleep. It also can help with anxiety and stress and depression. So there's really, and I mentioned fish oil as well. So there's really just like a handful that I think can be really important. Outside of that, I do think it comes down especially to the individual. I am a fan of collagen for sure, just really beefing up the elasticity in the skin and the joints and the bones and all that. So yeah, I do agree though that supplements, you can go down that rabbit hole before you know it. Like yeah, exactly. Taking a lot of different
Our
things.
last guest has a calcium magnesium combo supplement called CalMag that she sells on her website, Desiree Lots. And yeah, I think that she also recommended a formula, which we're going to post a link to soon, that has a lot of that kind of food grade, nutraceutical kind of thing that you can add to your smoothies, and that can be really helpful. I personally take a multivitamin for women over 40. I think that's kind of my insurance policy, and I don't take it every single day. I take it a few days a week. I think that just makes sure I don't overdo it, but I think that's already been regulated for that. One time I went to a doctor and I said, I get really nauseous taking all of this stuff. And she recommended a prenatal vitamin, even though I'm older. And she said, yeah, those are formulated for women who, may be pregnant and having nausea. And so if you do get nauseous from your vitamins, that might be a solution you can ask your doctor about. But yeah, I think that it was just, every time I take a multi, I just feel kind of sick. And that did help me out a lot. I just wanted to make sure I was getting the right thing. I said, so it's not bad for me to take a prenatal, even though she's like, no, it's fine. But I ended up switching to one that's specifically for women over 40.
I would
Yeah,
say,
there's a lot more out there.
yeah, for sure. And I would say, a couple of the things that you want to look for when you are picking up a supplement, because there are a lot of good ones out there, but there's a lot of garbage out there. Supplements are not as regulated, especially in the United States. And so you want to make sure, well, they are they are regulated in the United States. It's when they're getting them from like China and overseas and stuff. So you want to make sure you pick a supplement that is made in the USA. And you want to also make sure that it is third-party tested. That's a big one. You can look on the back of your supplement and you want to make sure that it says somewhere on there that it's been third-party tested and it's made in the USA. And you have, obviously that is going to increase your chances of it being a quality supplement, because otherwise you don't know what you're getting. There's not a lot of regulation there. So yeah, that's an important one.
Good tip. I have a question. What is the deal with the lower belly fat? Okay, I know we've talked about cortisol. People have talked about cortisol being something that increases as you get older. And it just seems like, especially during perimenopause, I will do strength training and, with some, I'm not a huge cardio person, but I love to hike. I'll definitely move my body. And it seems like even when I look good all over, I still have a little bit of that pooch I cannot seem to get rid of. Do you have any tips for that?
Gosh, and it's really funny. I talk about belly fat a lot. It's not just with women. I can't even tell you how many men are like, oh my God, how do I get rid of belly fat? Yeah. And that is a really hard thing, especially for women as we age and as our hormones shift and how our body redistributes tongue tied, the fat. And, the thing that really stinks is that you spot reducing isn't a thing. It's just not, right? Like you can't spot reduce. And so a lot of it with belly fat as we age, a lot of it is genetic as far as like, how your body is going to store that. I would say the biggest thing, and again, it kind of goes back to a lot of the fundamentals we were talking about earlier, which is reducing a lot of the processed and packaged foods, and if you have the best chance of reducing it, right? Like sometimes I know for me, belly fat is the last to go. It's the first I can notice it in my body, like when I feel like I'm feeling more bloated, or I feel, like I've gained a little bit of weight. It's definitely the first to show up and definitely the last to go. um yeah, it's
So
so
rude.
unfair. It's
It's
so
so
rude.
rude.
So rude. So rude. And I know for me, I've had two kids and I gained a lot of weight. I mean, the elasticity in my stomach is not the same also as it used to be when I was
Yeah.
younger, which makes a huge difference too, right? It's just, yeah, it's not as tight and compact as it was.
Of course, it's always great in the morning, and then by the evening, okay. So now I'm definitely a proponent of morning sex because you got the morning abs,
Yeah,
right?
you
And
listen, yeah.
nighttime, you're like, oh no, it's
Yeah.
cool.
Oh,
Like,
same, same. I'm good with it.
doctor, what is
Yeah,
that?
no, yeah, exactly. I'm totally with you. I think that, like I said, kind of going back to some of the fundamentals, I think your best chance of really helping that is to absolutely be more mindful of the food you're putting in your body. I think cutting down on the sugar and the processed foods, but then also, yeah, definitely making sure you are doing some strength training and some and doing some core work. But again, I just want to say that with caution, that I don't care how many sit-ups that you're doing or core work that you're doing. It really does have to do with kind of your overall body fat and the rate at which your body will release that. So I know it's just really one of those unfair things as we age. It's,
So
it's
so rude.
so
You
rude.
know, so rude. Well, so combining the strength training with HIIT training has helped me because I'm not a big steady state cardio person. Other than hiking, I get bored as hell. Like I cannot be on a treadmill for hours. It's just not who I am anyway. So luckily, I didn't go down that direction of just being one of those cardio girls. I definitely and my body is definitely more of a mesomorph. I can gain muscle pretty well, but I noticed when I combine it with HIIT training, where it's high intensity intervals, that can. And I hate doing it. I don't. I think it's painful, but that it seems to be the most effective blend for me. Have you guys experienced that at all, or what other tips do you have regarding your training?
Yeah, absolutely. As a trainer, that is the style of workout that I teach. It's an interval training combined with strength training. I can tell you that I have been an athlete my entire life, and I've, from in my 20s doing just strictly strength training. I mean, super strong, pushing seriously heavy weight, like all the things, all the way up and through my 30s. And I can tell you that this style of training, when you combine interval training with strength training, the HIIT training with the strength training, it is hands down the most effective workout that I've ever done. At 42, I'm absolutely in the best shape of my life. And it's because of that. I'm working out less. I'm doing 4 days a week of it. Anything more than 4 days a week of like a HIIT training actually can be a little too much hormonally for women over 40, just with cortisol levels and how that can affect some of the other sex hormones. So you want to be mindful that you're not overdoing it. If you are somebody that's getting back into an exercise program, I know sometimes we can get excited and fired up. We want to do that. Yeah, we want to do that kind of training like every day, but it's really you're not doing yourself any a good service there. So I've found that when you are able to do that style training, you could get a 20-minute workout in, and it is 10 times more effective than doing 45 minutes on the elliptical. So your body getting your heart rate up and down like that, and really improving your cardiovascular, and then also incorporating the strength training, in my opinion, it is by far the most effective way to burn fat like that. And I mean, I don't know about you, but like you said, I get bored too. Like I don't want to. Who wants to get on the elliptical for 45 minutes? That to me is awful. Or like 45 minutes or an
Yeah,
hour.
the audience of Beauty and the Beat don't have time for
No,
that, right?
They
nobody has
don't.
time.
We want to hit it and quit it.
Nobody has time for that. Absolutely. So, and
Right, especially Amanda. She's like the busiest girl I know, putting out a book and flying all over the world, and she's just
Yeah,
so
it
inspirational
is.
and still looks like
A
$1 million.
question I had for Amber though was if someone was listening to this and they're at home, they've not done any training, they're thinking, I want to change my life, I want to change my body, I want to become healthier, and where do they start? Because sometimes it's hard, like you have to build up the stamina, right? You can't just start strength training instantly. Do they start by getting, a personal trainer, or if they can't afford it? I know that one of the main things is they have to have certain foods, like start with their food, get rid of processed foods. But if, like, I just wanted like a very clear, simple way for them to start, because for the average person that maybe cannot afford to go totally, clean, and they still have to eat processed foods, and they want to exercise, but maybe they don't have money for a gym membership. How can they start basically?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. I think that's really important. I think the first thing that you can do to just start educating yourself and just start looking at labels. Start when you go, if you are somebody that needs to still out of convenience or for it's a money situation or whatever, you need to still buy stuff in a box or a package or whatever it is, just start paying attention to the labels, right? My rule of thumb is that if something has more than, like 5 or 6 ingredients in it and those I cannot pronounce, then I'm going to try and find something else, right? We've come so far in, I think, the food industry where, they've really started to be more aware and putting stuff in a box or a package that is a little bit, not as processed and not as, or even if it is processed, it's not as, complicated ingredients, things that, sound like they're from a 10th grade science class, right? Like you can just start educating yourself and just start there by is it simple? Do I know does it look like there's food in this? Or is there lots of chemical names that I don't really understand? And so then if the answer is yes, well, then just start, take a minute, right? Take a minute to maybe look at some of the other options. You might find that, oh, wow, actually there's something here that I didn't even realize that is very similar. And it just seems like a lot more simple. It's not as chemically. It's not as, full of, maybe some toxic stuff that you're putting in your body. So I think starting to, number one, go with labels. And then I think the other thing is, it really goes back to so much of what we learned when we were a kid. When you think about clean eating, that can sound like very daunting. Oh my God, that means I have to buy everything organic. That means I need to go to the farmer's market. That means I need to do this and that. And it doesn't have to be that. It literally can be going back to what you learned as a kid, like in your little 5th grade health class or whatever it is get more vegetables. If you can't afford to buy all your vegetables organic, look up online and look up the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. That is a really good place to start. The Dirty Dozen is what like the top 12 that are the most, the environmental working group, they do a test every year on all the fruits and vegetables, and they determine which ones are going to be the most toxic as far as how much pesticides they're putting on them versus which, if you can't afford to do everything organic, which ones are going to be ones that you could really get away with, if you had a choice not going organic. So it's a Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. Start there, right? Let's just start there. Start incorporating more vegetables in your diet. Start incorporating, some good fats, right? Go for some avocados and some nuts and some seeds. The things that, nut butters, all of that. You can really just start to slowly kind of swap things out in your diet. I don't ever recommend going in and doing like a complete overhaul, dumping everything in your pantry and like starting over, just because you're not going to stick to that. Just keep it simple. Start to make some simple changes that's going to allow you to be more consistent. And those are going to be the dial movers. So getting more vegetables, starting to shop the perimeters of the store as opposed to going in the inside aisles. That's usually where more of the processed and packaged foods are. And then as far as an exercise program, I was talking with somebody about this the other day, and they were talking about, if you're first getting going with the exercise program, it can be really intimidating to like go to the gym if you don't have the means for a personal trainer. Obviously, if you do have the means to do a program, like with someone like myself that does fitness component to my programs as well, or you can have access to a trainer, just like anything, they are the expert. It's going to be probably the best way to get going, but not everybody can afford that. And I appreciate that. So, if you are somebody though that has some hesitations about going to the gym because you don't feel like you know what you're doing, you're a beginner. One of the positives that happened with the pandemic is there are so many at home programs now that are more financially accessible to people. YouTube is another great resource for finding. Yeah, YouTube is another good one as well. But I also think though, sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves to like, we have to get in, we got to start this 5-day strength training program. We have to do all this and do all that. And I think that it can really be as simple as just starting somewhere of get outside and go for a walk around the block. You don't have to do a sprint around the block. Just start moving your body, start getting into your body again, start getting those endorphins going, start working up a sweat, figure out what you like. Maybe that is having dance party with your kids or whatever, in the mornings or the evenings or your partner or whatever, or by yourself, naked in front of the mirror, which is what I do every day. Just what does that look like to just move your body? So I think we can really, when we start more simple and take a lot of the pressure off ourselves, I think that's where you start to gain momentum. I think that what we make it hard for ourselves when we want to go in and totally, overhaul our food and our food and our exercise and everything, and then we get discouraged when we're not able to stick to it. So start simple. Start simple is what I say.
One of the things that I also think really helps is when you look at what you can have instead of what you can't have. Because sometimes people will say, I can't have my favorite foods and this and that. And they're looking at everything from the things that they don't like to do or they can't do anymore. And there's so many things that we can add in that just make it better. Like you said, add in the vegetables, add in some form of exercise that you do enjoy and focus on those things and not so much what you can't have and what don't like to do. And I think that's just a little mindset shift that can really help, with the consistency piece that you were talking about, which I totally agree with, because I personally am a strong starter and then I have a hard time sticking with it. Recently, I tracked 161 days of tracking food on an app, and that took a lot. There was a few times I was just ready to give it up. And I don't want to track anymore. And I'm not saying people need to do this. For me, I wanted to start to look at patterns and things like that. So I was tracking a lot. But I noticed that, like you said, 3 weeks or so, I could have a really strong show. And then I'm just like, I feel like, okay, I've done it, but yet I'm not really done with meeting my goals. So yeah, anything you can do for mindset really seems to help me stick with it, especially knowing I'm a starter and not, and having a hard time as a finisher sometimes.
Well, I want to tell you that you're not alone with that. And this is where I see the biggest hang up. And this is so much of a piece of what I teach when I teach women sustainable weight loss. The problem is that when we start some of these programs, the difference between I think clean eating and really learning how to incorporate like satisfaction and moderation into that. Like when you're able to incorporate satisfaction and moderation, that's a lifestyle right there, right? When you just are focusing on the clean eating, that can be just another diet. And so I think what happens is that the first step is actually getting rid of this whole notion that there's good food versus bad food, that some foods you can have and some foods you can't have, right? Or, you can have like a cheat meal, right? So for me, all that kind of thinking, right? Like cheat meals and I can have this or I can't have that or whatever. All that does is kind of, number one, I think it perpetuates binge mentality. And then number two, I think it really sets you up for failure because you're not alone with that because we can only hold steady to that kind of like restrictive regimen for so long before we're like, this sucks. Like I don't want to do this anymore. And so I think that one of the key things to establishing a lifestyle is number one, getting your mind around that if you have some weight loss goals, it's going to take a minute, right? Like stop thinking, you have to think about it like I'm in it for the long haul, but I want to be able to enjoy, some pizza and some wine on a Friday night. And I'm going to, I always talk about kind of eating more of like the more clean, like 85% of the time and allowing yourself some of those indulgences or during the week, you really want you really want something sweet. Well, allowing yourself something sweet. You don't have to necessarily eat the entire cake, but have a couple bites of it. It being a little, as I always say, again, being a little less perfect is going to make you a lot more consistent, right? So yeah, that's such a big, big thing that I hear a lot of, and I struggled with it myself too, because I was, again, such a serial dieter. And I would be like all in or all out, right? It's just like one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that.
I totally get it, because it's just the way it is. So what Amber's saying is that, you just start the journey. You don't have to be 100% perfect. So whether you're looking at your food labels, walking around the block, which I've started doing, walking a lot, or just like cutting out certain foods, doesn't mean you have to cut out everything, but just take action, because with slow action, you'll start seeing results. And with those results, you'll get better and better and better at it. Amber, so it's been great having you on the show. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I would love to connect. So on Instagram and TikTok, I'm MS Amber Shaw, so Miss Amber Shaw, and my website, ambershaw.com. I'm also releasing a podcast next month that I am super, super excited about. Actually, this month, it'll be in July. So the end of July, it's the Wellness Revolution. And this podcast is really going to be geared towards women over 40. And we're going to be talking nutrition and fitness and relationships and mindset and really just all things life after 40. So I am really, really excited about it. And again, that's coming late July.
Okay, so guys, you've heard that. Look out for Amber's new podcast, The Wellness Revolution. It's going to be on Apple Podcasts, I guess, Spotify, and all podcast platforms. You can find Amber online. She just gave you her website. And, really think about your nutrition, ladies. Really think about exercising. It helps you live longer. You look better for it. And, it's just life-changing. So, Amber, thank you so much for coming, giving us all this amazing information. Any closing comments?
No, I just, I totally agree. I do want to emphasize that it's just, start small and make focus on changes that are really going to turn the dial long-term, right? That's the key. So, absolutely.
This is one of my favorite topics, and I feel like we can talk about it all day. So we'll either see you on your podcast or we'll have you back on ours. But we love having you as a guest.
Oh
and
my
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So grateful.
Hi, guys. It's Amanda from Beauty and the Beef podcast. I hope you've enjoyed listening to all our episodes. So if you enjoy the podcast, you can support us by liking, subscribing, and commenting down below. If you're listening to this anywhere else, you can also just like us. We like to know what your opinion is on any of our topics. So please comment, or you can contact us at beautyandthebeat@gmail.com.